If you're thinking of getting your private pilot's license, this is a video that I think you're really gonna enjoy. Hey there, my name's Seth. I'm a pilot, and in this video, I wanna share with you what might have already been shared already, and some things I'm pretty sure you haven't seen or heard before. So here's what we're gonna cover in this video. First of all, what is involved in getting a private pilot's license? How long does it take? Why is now such a great time to become a pilot? How to choose a school and an instructor, and then there's some super important caveats that I'm going to cover in that section of the video. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the biggest mistakes that I personally see people make that causes them to take a lot longer than they need to and spend a lot more money than they need to, and to experience a high level of frustration that may even lead to them giving up along the way. And of course, that's no fun at all. So if that sounds good to you, stick around because we're gonna jump right into it. So, the private pilot's license is the starting point of your aviation journey, and it can open up a world of opportunity to you. Maybe you'll just stop there and fly for fun and take your friends for a ride, or go fishing, or do whatever it is you like to do. But no, there's a lot more opportunity awaiting you, and now is an incredibly good time to take advantage of that opportunity. So most commonly, when people get a private pilot's license, the next thing they're probably gonna do is get an instrument rating. They might get a multi-engine rating, or they might get a commercial rating, or they might even get all of that. They might even go on to get their instructor ratings. The certified flight instructor, the one that people commonly go for, the certified flight instructor instrument, and the multi-engine instructor. I actually did all of that stuff by attending Upper Limit Aviation and Pilot Makers. I researched other big box flight schools that said it was going to take 7.5 months, but they changed those times now to 12 months, which is the advertised time for many reasons. Multiple instructors and the large amount of students, and trying to schedule all at the same time, and the list goes on. It was actually 3.5 years for me, but it could have been less than 6 months if I had dedicated my schedule more thoroughly to flight train. At the time I was working and I was going to school full time, so I couldn't focus a ton on flight instruction. So that took me ultimately more time and more money to accomplish. And we'll talk about why it takes more money if you're going to take a longer time later in this video. So I want to talk a little bit about the folks who are thinking about becoming a private pilot. And maybe you're kind of thinking, maybe you want a pilot to be your profession as opposed to just recreation. So know this, there's never been a better time to be a commercial pilot. All of the pilots now are retiring, and with COVID, the demographic shift, it's just causing a huge pilot shortage around the board. That means the airlines are more desperate than ever to hire pilots, which also means greater pay than pilots have ever received. So if that sounds interesting to you, again, watch this video that I will link in the description, and know that the private pilot's license is the very first step in that journey. Now let's talk a little bit about the prerequisites for the private pilot license. So you do need to be 17 years of age. You do need to have a Class 3 medical minimum from the FAA, which is given to you by a aviation medical examiner that the FAA designates to give a medical checkup. Now, if you're anticipating that you're going to the airlines, and if you want to go to the airlines, if that's your goal, I'd recommend getting a first class medical. That meaning it's held to a little bit of a higher standard because you're flying people for compensation and hire at the airlines, and so it's a longer medical test for you. And so I'd recommend getting that just to make sure you have no known underlying medical conditions, so that you don't get in a flight train and only have your third class and want to get to the airline and say, oh wait, I can't even get a first class because of this condition. So very first up, that would be a disqualifying factor if you couldn't get that and you wanted to go to the airlines. Also, you need to be able to read, write, and speak the English language. And so I'm in the United States, so I'm talking about the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA rules. So if you're in a different country, you're gonna have to do your own research and understand the differences between what I'm explaining to you in this video and your particular country. And then the very first thing that I would encourage you to do, if you meet all of those requirements, is go and get yourself a discovery flight. So a discovery flight, if you've never ever flown before, is the whole idea of getting your whistle wet, testing the waters before this whole pilot thing. You're gonna fly with an instructor. You're gonna fly around for a while, you're gonna look out the window, and you're gonna just enjoy what it is like to be a pilot. And then more than likely, you'll get the flying bug and you're gonna want to continue in your process. So now let's talk a little bit about the timeline. So as a rule of thumb, it's all over the map. You could do it in as little as a month. A lot of people take 6 months, 3 months, 4 months. It all depends on really how often you fly. Now in my case, I got mine in 6 months. I was a senior in high school. I wasn't flying that often, but I was able to get that at the minimum. When I was 17, I was able to get my private pilot certificate. And so this is really important for you to understand. I know a lot of people that come into this and they're thinking about they're limited by their budget and their free time. Just know that you're gonna spend, the faster you go, you'll actually be spending less money. Because in between flights, the shorter the amount of time between your flights, the less likely you're gonna forget what you learned. And therefore you're not going to. It can be 2 steps forward, maybe a quarter step back, 2 steps forward, a quarter step back between flights. Now, if you're only flying once a week, you're gonna take a long time because you're gonna go out and you're gonna learn something, and in between that flight and a week later, say, you're gonna get rusty. You're gonna forget a lot of stuff. So you're gonna end up having to repeat what you learned before, and your instructor's gonna have to take more time. You're gonna have to take more time in the aircraft. So overall, you're taking steps backwards, and it takes a lot of funds, a lot of extra money to get yourself headed in the right direction again. So just know that the faster you decide to go, the faster you can get your private pilot's license. The more proficient you're likely to be, and you will probably spend less money in the process. So now let's talk a little bit about testing. How are you going to be tested so that you can actually get this certificate? Well, the FAA requires 3 different types of tests. The first one is a written examination. Now, the other 2 are called the check ride, and it's composed of a oral examination and a practical examination in the airplane. Now, the last 2 are at the end of your training. The written test can be done at any time, and I recommend you do it at the very beginning. So how do you get ready for the written test knowing absolutely nothing? And the answer to that is ground school. There's quite a different number of ground school providers. Some of you are excellent studiers, and the FAA provides you with resources to study and manuals you can study from. So probably the most common of the FAA manuals is what we call the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, or PHAK. This is the number 1, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. This is one of the number of books that are available to you from the FAA.